So gaslighting, if you're not aware, is a specific type of manipulation that people use to try and get someone or a group to question their own reality, to question their memories, their perceptions of the things that are going on in their life. It's a way for a person to try and gain power over another individual. It's a way of saying that what happened to you isn't real, or what you believe to be real is not real. I know better, and I'm going to tell you how it is. Now, it can happen in all sorts of situations. It can happen in romantic relationships. So let's say a cheating spouse that continually tells his partner that they are crazy, that they are imagining things, that it's all in their head, that nothing's going on. That's gaslighting. Cult leaders do it to gain power over their followers. And it happens to us in the ME CFS community as well. Now, it happens to us. We get it from the medical community. We get it from society at large. But we also do it to each other. So what does gaslighting look like in the ME CFS community? How do you know if you're getting gaslighted? Well, if someone is telling you that even though you're saying you have ME CFS, that you don't really have it, or that it's actually not that bad, or that what you're saying is working for you to get better actually isn't working or couldn't be working. It's telling you that what you know or what you are experiencing with this is wrong. And really skilled gaslighters, watch out for this, will throw some positive reinforcement in there. So it might be something like, I really love your videos. Thank you so much for doing this. But if you're saying that you went for walks while you were doing juice cleanses, then you never actually had this illness. It leaves you feeling kind of like, oh, thanks. I mean, wait, what? Or, I'm so happy for your progress, good for you. But if you're already going on hour-long runs, you were never actually that sick. So I want to hear from you. Give me a yes in the comments if you have ever been on the receiving end of gaslighting with your ME CFS journey, or if you've ever hesitated or completely stopped yourself from sharing something about your health journey out of fear of getting gaslighted by others. When we break it down, we can see it for what it is, but in the moment, it can be quite effective. And all of us, I'm sure, or most of us, myself included, fall prey to it once in a while. It's a tactic meant to put you on the defensive. It's made to have you start defending your reality to that person, to the attacker.
So gaslighting and ME, I think for me there are three really key examples. The first one being we're going to see the doctor before I had a diagnosis, but having a very good idea of what was wrong with me. So I'd had a lot of blood tests by this point. Was crashing for days or weeks after even going to something as simple as a doctor's appointment. And I remember kind of going and trying to self-advocate for myself. And the doctor just kind of wagging his finger at me as I stood up to leave after my appointment, where I thought like maybe he was beginning to understand and empathise, and he just went, we haven't ruled out depression. And I just, I just didn't have the spoons, the energy to be angry at that time. I just cried. I just left the doctor's office and cried because I just didn't have the capacity to fight for myself. And when I knew that I was not being treated fairly or with respect or being listened to and being lied to.
Now, when someone gaslights you, it doesn't come with the heading, hey, I'm gaslighting you. So it's not always so obvious when it's happening, and it's really easy to fall into the trap. I imagine most of us have here or there. I know I have. I'm sure you could comb through the comments in my videos and find instances of places where I'm defending myself to strangers on the internet, trying to prove to them that my reality, that what I'm telling them is real.
Maybe since I don't have a public YouTube channel, and when I came on your channel I cried, I avoided most of this, but I actually did get a little backlash when I shared my written recovery story in a popular ME Facebook group, people questioning my motives and my recovery. And so for me, defending myself is an old pattern I've had to let go of. So I just left that group immediately. And I realize it comes from pain and the frustration of countless past bad experiences, and that these otherwise wonderful people have been diminished by years by family and doctors and a medical system that hasn't caught up with science and our realities. And that they've tried so many things and lost all their money. And that they don't need some cheerful person talking about their own recovery, giving them false hope.
The reason I've decided to talk about this today is because I believe that anyone with interaction with other people in this ME/CFS community, anyone with a voice, anyone with a platform, anyone with any kind of connections at all, which is virtually all of us, has a responsibility for how we show up in this community. And I'll admit that I didn't always think too much about this. I just sort of talked to people, reacted to things, posted things, with not a lot of thought about what my overall goal was. But as the years go by, I'm becoming more and more focused on how I can live my life consciously, with a conscious approach to everything that I do. And this very much includes how I interact with all of you, the ME/CFS community. So I have, in recent times, put a lot of thought into this. And I can tell you that there are 6 very specific things that I aim to achieve every time I put something out into the world, every time I interact with someone, whether that be in a YouTube video or an email or a DM or going out for coffee. And those 6 things for me are to connect, support, inspire, educate, motivate, and entertain. So everything I put out, I make sure is hitting at least one of those targets, and ideally, all 6.
The second example I found really tough. So I'm a member of quite a few different ME, chronic fatigue syndrome groups on Facebook, and I'm quite active on Instagram in terms of sharing my experience and attempting to support other people with ME and similar kind of symptoms or illnesses. And in one of the ME groups, somebody had asked a question about something that had, for suggestions of things that had helped other people and could possibly help them. So I'm very careful with the way that I offer my information. I never lead with you should do this and absolutely you must do this. It's like a suggestion. And so I had simply written down some suggestions. Can't even remember what they were now, probably different supplements or something that had been really successful. And then and I'd said how successful it had been for me, because I consider myself to be quite a good percentage of the way through recovery. I feel very well most of the time now, which is a marked difference. But having put this suggestion on, another member of the ME group had commented saying, did you have a diagnosis? So you didn't have ME. I had a diagnosis, and it's insulting that somebody would question your illness when you're questioned constantly by the medical profession about ME. So to have somebody who has probably been treated like that by doctors to then question you or kind of say, oh, well, you never had ME in the first place, that was tough. And I took a couple of days, I think, but I did go back and respond and said that I felt really really saddened by the fact that I'd been treated like that by somebody who knew how hard ME was, because there have been the darkest of dark moments, and I know I'm well and full of energy and feeling myself again, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, and that feels magical. But I'll never forget the years of being very, very sick, being bedridden, and not being able to do things for myself.
So what I'm inviting you to do here, if you haven't done this already, is to take a moment to think about your own intentions for how you're showing up in this community. What is it that you want to achieve? What do you want your presence to be? Because what you say matters. What you do matters. And I think especially with digital communication, it can be all too easy to forget that behind that screen is a real person with real struggles and real feelings. And what you say to them matters. What you say matters.
And you know, we're up here smiling and things are rosy, and I put mascara on for this, yes. And I dance on my Instagrams. But I was once down in the trenches, and I know you were too, Raelan. But being honest, before I met you, Raelan, I thought you were just a pretty person with exercise tips who made smoothies, judging from your YouTube cover photos, as one does. And then I met you, and I learned more about Raelan's story, and this amazing person has been through an absolute hell of a 10-year journey and all the personal challenges in her life. You know, anyone who's had this, we know that things on the surface level are much different than that they are in reality. So I'm just saying thank you to those who support one another and give us the benefit of the doubt when we share our stories. And in my case, you know what, I've told a lot of my story on Raelan's channel, but I've held back two major challenges, or resilience building opportunities, as I like to say. One was a very big other health challenge, and another personal one because it's just too darn much. You know, coming back and sharing our stories isn't easy. It's much easier to walk away. It involves speaking about the worst thing that ever happened to you.
Now, I am so moved by the extent to which the majority of what you guys send out online that I see, whether to me or to other people, is so constructive and so supportive and so filled with love. But I know, at least for me, not everything I receive comes with that good-hearted intention. And as much as I wish that this wasn't the case, the attacking or the unkind or the gaslighting things that you guys, some of you, say to me really hurts. I have had times in the past where things that people have sent me have reduced me to tears. I can recall one time when I broke down and just completely bawled. I mean, I'm talking the full-on ugly cry. Someone once sent me 8 paragraphs. I counted. It stuck with me. Basically breaking down how everything I said was wrong and everything I knew about my life was wrong. It was just an attack trying to break me down. And in the moment, even though logically I knew this wasn't something that I should let bother me, it really, really did. And as time goes on, I get better and better at taking power away from other people to hurt me. But it's been a process, and I'm still not fully there. And I'm human. I have to hold back the urge to respond and send 8 paragraphs back, attacking back, telling them how their reality is wrong, and essentially just trying to hurt back and trying to prove them wrong and prove me right. But I'm an adult, like probably most of you watching, and as an adult, I have to parent myself, so I have to stop myself. And the way I do that is by making sure if I do respond to comments like this, I take a break and I let myself cool down. Because if I'm reacting out of emotion, I'm never going to show up as that person that I want to show up as.
And then the third example that I have was quite a recent one, and I spoke to Raelan about it, which prompted me contributing to this video, and that was a childhood friend, so somebody who I'd known since I was about 6 or 7, who has fibromyalgia. You know, we have supported each other and helped each other with our illnesses and the issues that come up as kind of a sidestep from the illnesses. And then because I've been posting about the exercise that I'd been doing on Instagram, she'd asked me about that, and I explained the kind of the steps that I had taken leading up to being able to do like an hour's running or a 30-minute HIIT class. And you know, that I wouldn't have been able to do that at the beginning when I was sick. Like that wouldn't have worked for me. There were many steps to get to that point, which I had explained to her, and then she said, well, did you have a diagnosis? So again, like somebody who knew that I was ill was again just questioning, like, well, why are you sure you were really ill in the first place? Maybe it was just depression. And it makes me not want to be friends with her anymore, because why would I pretend I have this illness? It's awful. It's awful.
So let me share with you a little bit of what gaslighting looks like for me. I'm going to address some of these things here right now, and then I'm never going to talk about them again. So if this stuff continues to come up, which I'm sure it will, but I hope it doesn't, but if it does, I'm either going to ignore it or I might politely invite those people to take a look at this video. So these are some of the actual sentiments, some of the actual things that I receive when it comes to my experience of ME/CFS. Things like, oh, you just spontaneously recovered. You didn't have to do anything to get well, and now you are getting rich off of your recovery. And comments like these both make me laugh and make me incredibly sad. For one, I wish it was easy. I wish it happened spontaneously. It is impossible to exaggerate how hard I had to work to recover. And here's something that I've never talked about before, which is the financial aspect of things. So let me tell you what my financial reality looks like. Full transparency. To this date, I have yet to make a single dime off of anything that I do. Nothing, not $1. And I have put in literally thousands of hours of work. Virtually everything I do is unpaid. I lose entire weekends sending out well thought out and heartfelt responses to people, whether through email or DMs or comments in various social media places. And I also have started running a Facebook support group, which I of course do completely for free. And yes, I have a book out that I published, but to this date, at this time of recording, I have yet to even break even on what I put into it. And I'm not even talking about the hundreds of hours I spent writing it. I'm just talking about the actual money that I had to put in, that any new indie author has to put into a published book for publishing and advertising. I haven't even broken even. And this channel, at the time of recording, doesn't make me a penny. I don't make any money off of it. It actually costs me money because it's very important for me to put out quality stuff, so I pay for subscriptions to help me make nicer thumbnails and to have stock photography or stock photos available for me to use. So I'm not making any money off of anything. And there are people who walk away from really great careers to become health coaches. And I have yet to meet a single health coach who is rich. It's like, I'm trying to think how to explain this in a way that makes sense. I think of people who say perhaps have broke free of addictions. And when they get past it, they come back and they want to be an addictions counselor because they know what it's like to be in that hell, and their heart breaks for the people who are still stuck in that. And I think they might have something to offer where they can hold those people's hand as those people find their way out of it as well. So many of us, yes, do come back after and do these things. We have YouTube channels, we write books, we do Facebook groups and all sorts of stuff and Instagram accounts. But if you think anyone's getting rich off this, you are mistaken. It is just out of a desire to give back. For me, it's a way of making all of the suffering that I went through be for something. So unless I wake up tomorrow with over 1 million followers on this account, for the record, it is not paying any bills. That is not why I do this. Another one I sometimes get, some gaslighting that comes my way, is that, well, if you could do this, whatever this was, then you were never really that sick. Or if this certain thing helped you recover, then you never had ME/CFS. And I suspect this is people going on the offense because something about my experience is stirring something up in them. Because if, let's say, for example, exercise worked for me, but it didn't work for you, what does that mean? Does that mean you're not doing it right? Does that mean you're not trying hard enough? Does that mean that you're a failure at this and that I'm a success? So it's easier to attack, I think, I suspect, to invalidate my experience than to think about your own. And this is such a complicated illness. As far as I know, there is no one-size-fits-all plan out of this. So just because something worked for someone else and didn't work for us, it doesn't mean that my experience or their experience is wrong. It just means that we have a different path out of this.
So last week, I saw someone post on Raelan's channel that if you heal under a certain year mark, it means your ME/CFS was just an allergy. Achoo! That went away on its own, and if it's over that year mark, it's predetermined whether or not you heal, and there's nothing you can do because some guy with ME wrote this in a book. Those statements like these are invalidating to our very real experiences. I assume the person who wrote this is a good person who just doesn't want others to feel like it's their fault for being ill. And it's not.
Something else I'll get is, this book or this study clearly states that whatever you just said is wrong. Now, one that comes up a lot is the plant-based diet. People love hating on the vegans sometimes, I see. So they might say, oh, this study here says that people are malnourished if they aren't eating meat. So there's no way that you're healthy on this diet. One study or one book does not mean that you are unequivocally right. It also doesn't mean that I'm unequivocally right. And I know you're smart, whoever you are that's saying this. I know you know that I could throw back studies at you as well, also showing how people who eat a plant-based diet are the healthiest people on the planet. There is a mess of information out there, all sorts of opposing information. And I am sitting here eating a predominantly plant-based diet and I am thriving, I am healthy, but you are telling me that I'm actually sick? I know this can be extremely frustrating, that what works for one person doesn't work for another. And I suspect what is sometimes happening here is that we lock onto certain ideas to maintain some shred of control over everything that's happening to us. So if I can at least lock it in my head that exercise is bad for all people with chronic fatigue syndrome or ME, or all people who recover must eat meat, it keeps something simple. It keeps something feeling under control. And when people come along and put things out there that shake up those beliefs, it's really uncomfortable.
ME/CFS is a very serious, disabling, hypometabolic, and neuroimmune condition at all levels. And I know as a society, we have a tendency to classify, to stratify things, so to differentiate those who are bedbound with ME. We call people who struggle to hold on at work, feel like, and spend 30% of their time recovering from a crash, mild. Like it's a type of condiment, or say that they're lucky. When in reality, we've all been through hell, whether it's just the different levels of hell. So whether you're in purgatory or the 10th dimension of hell, none of it's easy. Understatement of the century, y'all. We were all wronged. We were all effed by the medical system, by doctors who got it wrong, by people who didn't believe us.
So if you yourself find that you have ever found yourself in the situation of being the gaslighter, maybe you didn't know what you were doing when you did it. Maybe you really didn't have any negative intention at all, but on looking back, you can see that perhaps this is something that you've done. I invite you to think about what your intention was in that moment, or what it is in that moment, and get past the surface intention, because something's going to come up when you ask yourself this question that's defensive and righteous, like, oh, I'm just trying to set people straight or get proper information out there or educate the world. But really think about it, because we can get information out without gaslighting. So if you are doing so in a manipulative and destructive way, what is the real intention behind your doing this? Is it that you're sad? Is it that you're hurt? Is it that you're feeling threatened or vulnerable, or perhaps you're feeling attacked yourself? What I'm asking you is, who do you want to be? Someone who attacks others? Someone who throws shade? Someone who tries to make yourself feel bigger by making others feel small? Or someone who elevates, someone who loves, someone who supports, and someone who puts kindness out into the world? We need to get out of comparison mode, because pain is not a competition. Suffering is not a competition. We in this ME/CFS community need to band together. We need to stick together. We need to support one another. One person's experience will never invalidate somebody else's. And there is no good version of ME/CFS. I can see how social media might lead us to believe this, because we see smiling, happy faces of people who look healthy and vibrant, but there is no person, no matter where they are on that spectrum of ME/CFS, that is having a good time of this. There is no one person who is not currently going through hell, or who has not gone through intense periods of hell in the past. So this whole competition thing, it really is pointless. Now, I'm certainly not saying that when we communicate with other people, whether in person or online, that we have to agree with everything that they say. I certainly don't agree with everything that I see online. We can share opposing viewpoints, we can offer constructive feedback, but it's how we do it. It's the intention with which we do it and what we're hoping to achieve. And as much as I find that 90% of us are showing up every single day as the best possible versions of ourselves, that other 10% is doing real damage. It's making some of us afraid to speak up, myself included, to share our stories. And we need to speak up. We need to share our stories. With such a mysterious and poorly understood illness, I really feel like it's the only way out of this. We need to work together. We need to share information. We need to feel comfortable speaking up and sharing our experience.
And instead of focusing on righting the wrongs or squabbling against one another, to join arms and to share what actually works. Because it's time to take our power back. And I'm feeling a change. I'm feeling the tide is turning. By sharing our stories and what works, wherever we are on our recovery journeys, we can inspire research and change. And the more of us who get out, the better. But we need to be united. And I'm asking you to join me and to support anyone at any level.
This gaslighting is making too many of us live in a state where we are always waiting for an attack, and it's adding unneeded stress onto an already incredibly stressful situation. And that's up to you. Do you want to see the world through a lens of anger and agitation, or do you want to see the world through a lens of love and support and kindness? And I will say right now that if you come into my space, these spaces that I have created, you need to keep it constructive. You need to keep it healthy. Otherwise, you will be, I was going to say asked to leave, you will be forced to leave. You don't have to agree with everything. That's certainly not what I'm saying. But if you attack, if you gaslight, you will be removed. If you attack or gaslight anyone that I interview on my channel, you will be removed, because I need this to be a safe space for everybody, for me, for the people I interview on my channel, and for those of you who come and share your thoughts and share your feedback in the comments. I need everyone to know that this is a safe space where you will not be attacked. Well, I will not stand for it, and it will be shut down immediately. So if you're coming into my space, you need to come at things from a place of love. But even to those of you who occasionally don't, I still have nothing but love for you. I do not believe that you as a person is summed up by who you are in that moment when you make those comments. I do not believe that when you make those gaslighting type comments that you are showing up as the best possible version of yourself. I certainly have done and said things in my life that I regret. Things I wish I could take back, things that I am ashamed of, things that I would be horrified if people were going to sum me up as a person by how I behaved in my worst moments. I believe that you are more than who you are in those moments when you write those comments. And I think we need to give people some grace. We need to come at this from a place of love and forgiveness. I still have nothing but love for you, even if you have come at me in the past. You are more than your worst moments. Let me say that again. You are more than your worst moments, and so am I.
Cool. So if you have suffered with gaslighting as a consequence of your ME or any other illness or anything else at all, then there are people who understand and have been through similar, if not almost exactly the same situation. So for everybody who's gaslighting, there is somebody who has got your back and, you know, knows that you're not making this up.
But then someone will tell us, Liz, something you said is helping me heal. The people who are open to receiving your message, and there's many more of these positive messages, and it feels really good. So thank you. And if you're those other people, it's all good. ME CFS is lonely and scary, and I'm sending you my support too.
So let's show up with love. Let's face hate with love. Let's face suffering with love. Let's face sadness with love. It's the only way. And this may sound cheesy to you, but I stand behind it 1000%. So my ask is that you take responsibility for the energy that you bring into this community. Your words matter, your behaviors matter. And I tell myself the same advice. Take a slow, deep breath and make sure your energy is in check before injecting your stuff onto other people. Especially in our community, everyone in the ME CFS community has enough to deal with without getting garbage from other people. And when you are on the receiving end of this gaslighting and other people's judgments and manipulations and whatnot, this is not your problem. It has nothing to do with you. If I am judging you, if I am attacking you, if I am gaslighting you, that has nothing to do with you. That is all about me. That is my current character flaws. That is my own stuff. That is my things that I need to work out and get better at. It really has nothing to do with you. And we can't let it stop us from speaking our truth. And the more we do it, the more courageous we are about standing up and telling our stories and putting our fear aside, the more we invite that 10% who aren't doing this to come out of the shade and to join us in the light. It's our responsibility to speak our truth. It is never our responsibility to manage how others react to it. So how do you handle gaslighting in your life? What do you do when this comes up? One big point of this whole video is just for us to share our strategies, our thoughts, our mindset when it comes to this, and be supportive and help each other out. I saw something on Instagram, and I apologize, I don't remember who posted it, and I don't remember who it was by, but it stuck with me. And it was that those who are going through hell and still show up with kindness are my favorite kind of badass. So I will show up in this world loving others with kindness. I will show up with nothing but love for you, regardless of what you think of me. I love myself. I'm going to speak my truth, and I am going to value what I think of me more than what you think of me. And I hope that all of you out there are doing the same, because nothing can stop what we can do together.
And if you're interested in more of my story and recovery insights from other people who healed, you can visit me on healwithliz.com. And if you subscribe to my uplifting newsletter, that'd be awesome. And you can also find me on Instagram at HealWithLizC, where I share recovery tips and my dance videos.